Good afternoon. Welcome to Fraud Education's free webinar series on college admissions and standardized test prep due to COVID-19 and what has changed, what has been happening in the world of higher education admissions, what to expect if you have a current high school student prepping for college admissions, no matter what age they are. The webinar is about impacting the lives of your high school students from 9th grade all the way through 12th, including those who have been admitted to college at this time as class of 2020. My name is Ibrahim Firat, and I am the Chief Educational Consultant for Fraud Education. Currently, I've been joined by over 92 attendees from all over the nation, including parents, students, college admissions consultants who are friends of mine, many of them, and also school counselors joining us from different school districts and private schools. So thank you for joining us today. This is our second webinar on this topic. Last week's was completed April 2nd, and believe it or not, since things change daily with the COVID-19, my presentation from April 2nd to today has also changed. So you will expect these changes almost on a minute-by-minute basis, and we're offering 3 other webinars this week alone addressing college admissions and standardized testing for different regions around the country. Today's is more general, meaning for the national perspective, what has been happening in the college admissions process and standardized testing. So I will be sharing with you my screen and I'll walk you through what we'll be talking about. We'll be roughly talking about 45 to 60 minutes. And during the process, there is actually a feature on Zoom where you can submit your questions using the Q&A feature. The chat feature has been disabled, but you can use Q&A. And I'll at least try to get to all of your questions by the end of my presentation. So the last 15 to 20 minutes or so are roughly reserved for questions. So as you can see, college admissions versus COVID-19, last update was done today on my presentation. For those of you who don't know me, here's a brief background about who I am. I've been in educational consulting for 15 years and 12 years with Fraud Education. I started off as an SAT and ACT tutor, clocked in over 10,000 hours of tutoring for SAT and ACT, and quickly transitioned to college admissions consulting with over 14,000 hours of consulting. I published 9 books in school and college admissions. Our students have had over 1,000 college acceptances, 38 of which were IVs, and 14 of them were international colleges. I've personally visited 280 colleges around the country. It's just barely scratching the surface with over 4,000 colleges that are available, but I have a good idea about what each college has to offer and what kind of student is really a good fit for these at least 280 colleges. And our students have gained over $88 million in total merit-based scholarships. And I'm a professional member of National Association of College Admissions Counseling, IECA, Independent Educational Consultant Association, and Texas Admissions for College Admissions Counseling. I've been a board member for IECA for over a year right now as well. And we've been pretty up to date with all the changes that have been happening in college admissions, even pre-COVID-19. And we've seen so much information dirt out there about what has been happening and how can your world of schooling, standardized testing, and college admissions are impacted, that we felt the need as Fraud Education to inform you what is truly happening and just not just rumors. So a little bit about Fraud Education. We were founded in 2008 in Houston, Texas. We have served over 1,000 students. We have 27 team members, 11 college admissions consultants in 9 different cities around the country. We have 2 office locations in Houston, but we service students nationally and internationally. Our students have gained an average of 9 points from baseline to the official ACT, and 390 points on the SAT from their baseline to the official. 98% of our students have been admitted into the top at least top one of their top two schools. So what are we going to do today? We're going to be talking about strategies and typical timelines for college admissions and testing. The pre-COVID-19 times. What do we normally advise students and families to do? Then we're going to transition into how has COVID-19 disrupted the regular flow in admissions and testing? And then what's different now in strategies and timelines for college admissions? The post-COVID-19 times, what to expect? And knowing what to expect, what should be your action plan now? So we're going to finish it off with Q&A using the Zoom Q&A feature. So you should be able to write down your questions or type your questions as I speak, but I will get to them at the end of our conversation today. So the pre-COVID-19 times have been pretty relatively normal and expected flow of what college admissions really does when it comes to the identification of the best fit students for each and every school in the country, even those that are super competitive to those that are not so competitive. What are they looking for in students in terms of factors for college admissions? So in IECA and Firat Education, we use top 7 factors when it comes to colleges looking for the best fit student for their institutions. So the top number one factor in college admissions have always been, and I don't think this has ever changed over the last 30 plus years, is GPA and or class rank. So the GPA that you apply to college with, that is typically your freshman, sophomore, and junior year GPA cumulative, and maybe the first semester of your senior year grades, is still the top factor when it comes to college admissions. And again, this was pre-COVID-19 times, even post-COVID-19 times, this factor is not going to change. Number 2 factor, very close to being number 1 and 2 almost concurrently, is the curriculum rigor with which you're applying to college. So if you've gotten a 4.2 GPA out of 4.0, obviously you got that additional points because you've taken APs, honors, pre-APs, IBs, so you've got additional boost on your GPA. Versus somebody who has applied to a college with no APs, no honors, no IB high-level classes, so therefore the curriculum rigor is not really there, but there's a 4.0 GPA. So colleges have historically reviewed college admissions applications just by looking at these 2 factors and kind of determining what kind of school they're coming from, and most importantly, how did the student push him or herself during their tenure in this high school. And then the number 3 factor is also very close to the top 2, is SAT or ACT scores. There are over 4,000 colleges in the United States, and still majority of them, more than 60% of them, are still SAT, ACT required, or one of the 2 is required. So SAT, ACT factor has been there for a long time as well. Though there is a movement of test optional, test flexible, and test blind admissions. And I will talk to you a little bit about that given the times that we live in, how colleges are adapting to this requirement being not as critical or a little bit different temporarily or indefinitely. The other 3 factors are kind of blending in, so there's really not a ranking after these 3. Different colleges put different weights into the other 3 factors that are listed here. So 1 is relevant activities and leadership. So this is the student's resume. So what has the student done in and outside of school? What sorts of community service involvement they've had? What sorts of leadership activities they've had? And notice the keyword relevant. So relevant to what they want to do in college. So if we have a future aspiring engineer who has never done or been a part of robotics club, or maybe developed something on his or her own, but rather have done, something completely irrelevant to engineering, has possibly less chance of getting into a super competitive engineering college than somebody who has done relevant activities on leadership in the area of engineering. So this has been historically a pretty big factor for, again, competitive schools around the country. But even schools that are kind of relatively moderately competitive still look at this factor as important because they want to see the community involvement of the student when it comes to things outside of school. And then college essay. So the application essay that the student submits, whether this is the one long standard essay that goes to every college and or the supplemental essay each college asks from the students. This is where the colleges can get into the personal voice, personal tone, and actually the personality of the student. So it's been a pretty big factor, consistent factor over the last few years as well, that really the quality of the essay as well as the insights that admissions can get beyond the numbers, beyond the information that is submitted in the rest of the application. This is who the person is. So the personality really came through the essay factor. And then strong recommendation letters. So these are recommendation letters from teachers and counselors. So the more consistent the recommendation letters have been with regards to students' relevant activities, leadership, as well as their intellectual curiosities, the more chances the student will probably have when it comes to the admissions. And then the seventh and last top factor that has been kind of prevalent in the college admissions arena, relatively new, is ability to pay. Every college admissions application nowadays asks the question whether you're applying for needs-based scholarships. If the answer is yes, then your application pretty much is reviewed in context of the needs-based dollars available to the student at that point in time. If the answer is no, then you're reviewed differently because you're not really looking for that needs-based aid. So the ability to pay has been a factor, especially the bigger factor over the last 5 to 7 years than any other time in college admissions. So this is pre-COVID-19 times. I will come back to this about how COVID-19 may have shifted some of these bubbles, but this is pretty standard, has been pretty standard for some time now. So for typical ninth graders, we advise them on the academic side to test out of intro level mathematics and foreign language courses so they can follow the advanced path. So that way, when the time comes, even if they don't want to become an engineer or a doctor or international consultant or something, then, well, they still have the option to drop to a regular class later down the road, but they should start off the right foot. So we always recommended that for academics purposes. We also recommended them to take as many honors, APs, advanced courses as possible, but knowing their strengths. So if we have a student who's consistently struggled with literature and English in middle school, putting that student in honors English might jeopardize his or her chances of maintaining a high GPA down the road. So you need to be extremely careful for that because we need to maintain at least a 3.8, 3.9 unweighted freshman GPA at the end of that ninth grade. That way you're positioned for any college that even is considered a competitive college along the line. Standardized testing, we do not recommend SAT or ACT during this time, during ninth grade. However, we do and we did recommend SAT subject tests, which are typically very close to looking like the AP tests, but just the multiple choice component. They're in each, main core subjects that you're familiar with: English, math, science, history, even foreign language. So they're only 1 hour long, so really there's nothing to lose. Even though no college right now is requiring SAT subject tests or has required them pre-COVID-19, we've recommended the students to take them. If they don't do well, then they don't have to submit the scores. So that's been our recommendation for ninth graders for standardized testing specifically. For college admissions, researching online and visiting nearby colleges have been our recommendation, and not really, going too deep into research. Again, ninth grade is a transition year for many high school students. They're trying to get a hang of, how academics work, how, being independent with their work actually works in high school. So they're really busy with that transition. So we don't want to put a lot of pressure on their college admissions process and just go with the research component and visit nearby colleges component. So what has happened though with COVID-19, these two factors have been disrupted. And I will address how so, and what can you do and what can you expect moving forward after we're done going through what typically we recommend for high school students. For 10th graders, our academics recommendation is very similar. Take as many honors AP advanced courses as possible, but be careful with your selections. We don't want your GPA to be jeopardized. For standardized testing, this is the time to identify whether the SAT or the ACT is the best test for you. And we typically recommended this in the middle of sophomore year. So, post a Christmas vacation, somewhere between January to March, January to May, even like right around this time for a 10th grader, we would like to identify whether the SAT or ACT is the best test for them. And then of course continue the SAT subject tests process as well. For college admissions, we've recommended our 10th graders to be identifying their path. So by this time, by the middle of 10th grade, they should be able to identify whether they're, English language arts, social sciences, foreign language, or a STEM student. And if they're not, there are plenty of resources out there that their school counselors can provide them with, as well as consultants like myself and my team can provide them with, so that they can identify which path they're going to go, because they're going to have to know that for the 11th grade and 12th grade college admissions process. And of course, identifying the best fit colleges. So this is the preliminary list developing of the best fit colleges for the student based on the path that they're in. So again, that is the foundation of what is to come in 11th and 12th grades. And again, these are the two main areas that are being disrupted quite significantly with COVID-19, and we'll discuss how they're impacted and what you can do. For 11th graders, if you notice, the first word there is limit the honors and AP and advanced level courses only in your target area. So if you have not identified which kind of student you are by 10th grade, it's very hard or impossible to do this. So therefore, it's that much critical as a 10th grader to identify from a college admissions perspective what kind of student you are, what kind of skills you have, and you can limit the class load that you have in your target area. Now, let me give you an example. I've had a STEM student who's been in an engineering path for a long time, but he's also loved history. Absolutely enjoyed history to its max. He watched History Channel. He even wrote just like fictional stories based on historical facts, which was really interesting for a aspiring engineer. But then, for this student to limit or not do AP US history in 11th grade would be a huge detriment, huge disservice to his abilities as well as his intellectual curiosity. So what I did for this particular student is I said, look, you're going to load up on the STEM subject when it comes to advanced and AP classes. But I also would like you to go to AP US history, because this is going to make you thrive. This is going to get you excited, re-energized with everything that's happening on AP physics, AP pre-calculus. You know what, you can do this. And fair enough. He was able to really shine in that AP US history class, finished with a 94 average, and made a 5 on the AP test, whereas his AP physics test was a 4, so go figure, right? That shows the intellectual curiosity piece. And then when it comes to the college admissions, well, he got into most of the colleges that he's applied to, but his number 1 was Duke Engineering, and he got an early decision just with, with everything else that's been laid out in his profile. But did not AP US history help in that process? It did. It showed to Duke admissions, or any other admissions really, for this student's ability to critically think, analyze, write, and communicate in subjects that is not STEM. And that was a really big win for this student. So that's why, yes, limited, but know your intellectual curiosity, know yourself and what you can thrive in. And then Maintain an unweighted overall GPA in the upper 70th to 90th percentile of the admitted class for your target colleges. Again, if you don't have target colleges, then this is hard to do. So you're kind of shooting in the dark. So what you need to do is really have at least a preliminary list of some sort where you can say, okay, most of the colleges in my list have accepted student GPA of 3.2 to 3.6. Great. My GPA is currently 3.3. Well, let's push it a little bit and then at least hit a 3.4 plus. That's our recommendation for academics. For standardized testing, this is when SAT and ACT kicks in high gear. The year that you truly need to shine and finish with the SAT and ACT. Prep in the fall semester with 4 to 5 practice tests and take 3 official tests in the spring. So if you're a junior today, you've been locked down for 3+ weeks, and your tests are canceled, well, we're going to talk about what you can do, even though this was our recommendation pre-COVID-19. And when it comes to the target scores, again, we go back to that list. If you have a list of colleges that you've identified for yourself and the average ACT is 26 to 30, then you need to shoot for 28 plus so that you have a better chance to shine in other factors. You remember the 7 factors we talked about, in other factors other than GPA, curriculum rigor, and the ACT scores. And then on the college admission side, we recommend typically to juniors to visit colleges and confirm the fit. The list of colleges that you've developed in 10th grade and you're targeting for, you visit some of them, confirm the fit. So this is the class of 2021, 11th graders today, who are getting impacted the most about what's going on currently in our in the globe, really. So, but we have some suggestions on how to mitigate some of these disruptions. 12th graders, similar approach on the limiting of the honors, AP, advanced level courses, maintaining a fall semester GPA at or above cumulative and overall GPA is extremely critical. Standardized testing, hopefully they're done by then. So our goal is that they don't take the SAT, ACT, or the SAT subject tests during this time. And then college admissions, apply to their favorite schools by November 1 to increase their chance of admissions and also maximize their merit-based scholarship dollars. If they have a favorite college and if they offer early decision, we suggest that the case as well. And make their decision by May 1 of their senior year. We're coming to that date currently. May 1 is the national decision day, so that they can choose one college and apply, put deposit into that one school. And clearly we're being impacted on this side for the 12th graders. So what has happened is a bunch of news. SAT, ACT test got canceled. Colleges going test optional. University of California system, which is the largest university system in the country, is providing optional flexibility for testing as well as minimum grades. Boston University going test optional. We got Davidson going test optional. We got redesigning of the whole college admissions process. So news are almost hourly in this world of college admissions, and that's why we do what we do today, as well as for the next few weeks, probably just on informing the public about what is the true information and what can you do about it so you don't get caught off guard when things go back to normalcy. So let's talk about the disruptions. Disruptions are threefold: academics on the school side, and then standardized testing on the actual SAT and ACT side, as well as college admissions on many different perspectives. So academics, we all know schools are closed, some closed indefinitely. In fact, there are a handful of states right now that have pretty much said, we're closed for the rest of the year. We're gonna finish this school year with homeschooling and virtual learning. Remote learning has started. So the question is it consistent? Is the remote learning just as effective as in-person learning? Is the quality of learning in question? And of course, big one, those schools high schools that have decided to drop letter grades or points for pass and fail. So now if you go to a school that has done this and you are on track to do really well on in your classes, is pass and fail going to hurt your chances of getting into college? So that's a big question that we've been receiving, and there's that bad information again in social media going around circulating about pass and fail is bad, it's going to hurt your chances, don't do it. So there is a context to college admissions when it comes to actually appealing your cases. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Standardized testing disruptions. As you all know, SAT and ACT and SAT subject tests are canceled for spring 2020. While the June tests are still on, there is a chance that they will also be canceled. Again, the announcement has not been made yet, and I don't think it will be made for another few weeks as information changes very rapidly. And the big one about the testing is the AP tests. The announcement just came through 2 days ago about the detailed schedule as to what AP subjects are going to be covered in what topics, and then up to what content, what length, and what resources you have available. That's on College Board website for the APs. You can see that AP tests are in May 11th through the end of May, and they're shorter, and they're 45 minutes long, and they're all online. So they're also shifted to open book structure, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit as well. In the college admission side, colleges close their doors for students and visitors. All visit days have been canceled. The college signing day or college decision day, which is May 1, it's also the deposit deadline. Some 300 plus colleges have pushed back this deadline to June 1 or later. Again, we have 4,000 plus colleges in the United States, and only about 300 plus did push back the date. So we're not there yet completely, but we're moving towards that as the days go in April. Some colleges joined the test optional movement temporarily for fall 21 admissions. So this is the class of 2021 who are current juniors, current 11th graders. So more and more colleges are allowing that particular class to apply to their institutions with no SAT, ACT required and test optional. So, but some colleges also said indefinitely, you know what, we've been thinking about this for a while now. Now we are going indefinitely test optional. So one thing about test optional is a term optional. So as the term suggests, optional means optional. You have the option to submit the SAT or ACT or not. If you don't submit the SAT, ACT, then we're not going to penalize you for having submitted no SAT or ACT. Right? We're going to look at the other 6 factors. If you remember the 7 factors I shared with you earlier today, the other 6 factors are going to be put on more weight if you don't submit SAT or ACT. If you do submit the SAT, ACT, we will look at it. So that's what the test optional means. There's the test flexible admissions, which has been a term for a long time, even before test optional movement. Test flexible pretty much means you can submit any of the SAT or ACT, it does not matter. Most colleges, about 4,000 plus, have been test flexible for a long time. SAT or ACT, it does not matter. However, in the last couple of 5 years or so, there have been colleges that said test flexible, meaning replacing the SAT and ACT with AP or IB tests. So if you have solid APs and IB tests, and if you don't want to submit a regular SAT or ACT, we're fine with it. So there have been some colleges that did that, and they are also qualified under test flexible. But that number is extremely small. And then there's test blind. So test blind admissions are those colleges that pretty much say, you submit as SAT, ACT score, we're going to receive them and we're going to trash. We're not going to look at them. So if you are, submitting SAT or ACT scores after the fact by paying $18 to $21 each test report, you're pretty much throwing your money away for test blind schools. So what has been happening with the COVID-19 is more and more colleges are going test optional, not flexible, not blind, test optional. So just keep that in mind. And then in the college admissions side, there's the family situation. So we're talking about seniors of today, class of 2020. Okay, this class is very unlucky, unfortunately, because they're not most likely going to have a graduation. They're not going to have a prom, and they're going to have to choose a college without having to visit, or commit to a college without having to visit. But the worst of it all is, if they have submitted FAFSA or CSS profile to qualify for needs-based aid, they've done this back in October or maybe even as late as January, and look where we are today. Their families may have lost jobs, may have lost income, and their financial situation, or the ability to pay, which is EFC, expected family contribution, has changed drastically. So if this is the case, again, this is the case for many people, many of the seniors, then there is a solution to that as well that I'm going to talk to you about. So let's talk about those solutions. So in the red, you will see what our recommendation is as Firat Education moving forward. On the academic side, schools are closed. Yes, schools are closed everywhere. So there's really no disadvantage for you whatsoever. Colleges know this, even their own schools are closed, nothing to worry about. Remote learning. The question about consistency as well as the quality of learning. This is a big one. So you as a student, no matter what grade level you're in, you need to put an extra effort for even higher quality of schoolwork and get even higher graded assignments if you can during the remote learning process. And here's why. One, you get a little bit more work on your own, obviously, than you do while you're in school with your friends and with your teachers around and so on. So you have more quality time with the content, and you have better opportunity to produce a higher quality material. And if you do that, then if your school especially hasn't gone to pass fail and still maintain the grades, then the spring semester grades will show an upper trend. And that's a huge plus for any student, but especially for the juniors currently. So what you need to do is pay extra attention for your graded assignments, as well as get extra support, whether this is live on Zoom, on FaceTime, or any other learning platform that you use with your school, and connect with your teachers, create study groups, and make sure that your remote learning is the most effective and you can get your work done. And then grades versus pass fail. This is a big one. So, and this is really tricky. So for colleges, historically speaking, they already have a huge struggle trying to compare high school A to high school B, and whether an A from high school A and then an A from high school B is the same kind of A. So now imagine that A has now changed to pass and fail. That's even worse. So the best thing to do if your school has gone to pass fail option now is really twofold. One, you need to look at the grade before you went pass fail. So let's say that for the sake of example, you were in AP US History and you were maintaining a 94 average, and your first semester grade was a 92. Okay, so you're an upward trend. You were going to finish 94, maybe slightly low, maybe slightly higher, doesn't matter. You were on track to finish with a 94. What you do is you heard from your teacher that your school is now gone pass fail, and you go back to your teacher and say that in the transcript, after you get the P, which is pass, you would like this teacher to write you a recommendation letter and explain that you were on track to make a 94 plus before your school went pass fail. So therefore, the additional teacher recommendation from this AP US History teacher will serve as a context to the college admissions that yes, this is a pass, but this is a pass with a 94 plus potential on AP US History versus somebody else who had barely 77 average and then got a P as well. So you've provided context to the college admissions, and which is a huge plus in your case. So the other thing that you can do is work with your college counselor. So this is the second tip. Work with your college counselor at school and provide the story in the admissions process, not just for that one class, but for all the classes that you've been in. So you need to know in context that you've been on track to make so-and-so grade in each of your core classes, and ask your college counselor to include that data in his or her recommendation letter about you before sending to the colleges. So while your grades will all show P's, passes, but you're going to have context from your AP US history teacher as well as from your college counselor, who attests that your P is actually solid P with a cumulative GPA of X. Then you have a context included. And of course, be very, very selective about teacher recommendations, as well as intentional with the grade and the pass-fail story, as I suggested. Standardized testing, SAT and ACT and SAT subject tests are canceled. But the good news is, for the current juniors, there are options. There's the waivers of SAT, ACT requirements by more and more colleges around the country. But even before then, there has been a test optional movement before COVID-19. So fairtest.org has maintained a list of colleges that have been test optional before COVID-19. So this was 1,200 and more. And now that number is growing with the recent changes. So go to fairtest.org, look at the list of colleges that are test optional, and look at your college list. So if your college list as an 11th grader includes more and more of the test optional schools, and maybe one or two schools that are not, or that have not gone test optional yet, okay, maybe it's time to reevaluate those one or two schools and decide whether you still want to keep them or you want to drop them from your list. If you want to keep them, great. You can still continue on the path for SAT and ACT to come back, and we have some suggestions about that. Or if you can drop them, you can afford to drop those two schools, then you're done with the ACT SAT requirement. Don't worry about it. However, keep in mind that test optional schools, as the name suggests, optional, will still have some applicants who will submit SAT, ACT scores, while you may have opted not to. Will that put you at a disadvantage? It depends on the college. It depends on the program. It depends on the major that you select. So you need to be extra careful. Don't just blindly, say, oh, my school is test optional now, or all the schools are test optional, I'm not going to send it, I'm off the hook. So you need to talk to a professional, whether this is your school counselor or college admissions consultant. You need to ask them specifically for that list of colleges, should you go with no SAT, ACT, or should you submit still? So keep that in mind. And if you decide to continue, then late summer or fall tests are still expected to be on for SAT and ACT. So you have some options. On the other side, on the flip side, SAT and ACT are also working on additional test dates and locations for makeup. So these are not set in stone yet, but on the ACT side, for instance, there's been talks about, for those states that have flattened the curve, as we've heard it in the news every day now, if there's a flattening of curve or declining of that curve to a manageable point, SAT and ACT are both going to consider rollout locations for those locations specifically. So for instance, if the Washington state or, Iowa tends to, go flatten the curve or decline that curve, there's a chance that SAT and ACT might open SAT and ACT only for those locations come July, or even earlier if possible, if at all possible. So keep that in mind, watch those announcements, and they're still in the works. ACT, this is exclusive to ACT, is working on remote proctoring online late summer or fall. ACT has been on track to offer online testing as early as September anyway, so this is still on track. But with all the things that have been happening, they're trying to pull that forward to July testing. So they have not confirmed this yet, but if it does happen, the July national date, which is July 18th, possibly can go remote proctoring, and it can be done at home. But again, this is not confirmed. This is still in the works. So if you're on path to retake the SAT and ACT, or take it for the first time as a current junior, and your list of colleges have not gone test optional, or you still want to do it even though they're test optional, then you have your opportunities here. And if you don't want to, then again, you can push forward with the college admissions process. AP tests in May are shorter and online. They're 45 minutes long, can be taken at home. So if you've taken APs before, you will know that this is a big break for you. So this is a big news. You're probably excited. You're open book. I mean, you're shorter, mostly multiple choice, and even the written components are short answer. I mean, this is like a gold mine. So great. The question is, the score you get, is it going to be as legitimate as the score that you've gotten last year or the previous years? So the answer to that question is we still don't know. And we still don't know, and we still don't have any information from colleges about this. College Board has ensured colleges that the assessment will be just as fair and just as rigorous as it would have been if it was in person, or as long as 2+ hours. That is normally the case. So there's some question marks in many people's heads about this. So therefore, colleges may require additional verification from teachers and or your counselors at high schools before they can award you with the AP credits or the recognition of the AP score of 4 or 5 as rigorous completion of the curriculum. So here's an example. Let's say that again, you're in AP US History, you are on track to make a 77, which is a C in most schools. And then you took the AP US History AP test online, 45 minutes, and you made a 5. So that's not, that's not necessarily bad. That might mean that your school is really hard and your teacher is really grading hard and he or she is preparing you for the worst case scenario. So if everything was normal, that would have been the assumption, right? But what could happen in this case is with that 77 track, and then you make a 5 on the AP, you might be flagging the colleges about, wow, this student, was on track to make a C and now he makes a 5 on the AP test. We don't know about the legitimacy of the score. So therefore, you need, again, that context from your teacher and counselor for the admissions or the recommendation letter so that they can appeal for you. On the college admissions side, colleges are closed. You need to visit virtually. So if you are a junior or younger, you have the opportunities, no rush. And if you're a senior and you're about to make a decision on which college to attend, you have the same resources available for you. Uvisit.com and campusreal.org are the two websites I personally enjoy. Combined, they offer over 1,000+ colleges virtual visits with YouTube videos, student interviews, 360-degree views, and you get to feel the campus as best as you can. Individual colleges also offer virtual tours. Not every college does, but most of them do. So you can also visit their websites. And we have historically talked about on the college admissions side to visit colleges, follow up, check in with colleges so you can demonstrate interest. How can you do that during these times? Colleges have responded, admissions offices have responded to this by offering online information sessions and campus tours. So you actually register online with your name, with your email address, phone number, address, everything, like you would have if you were to visit in person. And then when that virtual session is live online, just like we are today, you sign in, as soon as you sign in and you watch the session, you are recorded as attended. So it will count as you've attended the campus and you've visited the info session. So please take advantage of those opportunities, especially these times, because if you don't, you're in the comfort of your own home. So obviously some people don't have the resources to do these things, and colleges are also adjusting to that, as long as you can tell the story when the college application time comes about why and how you couldn't attend to some of these sessions. Most colleges kept the May 1 deposit deadline for seniors, but 300+ of them have pushed it back to June 1 or later to give you more flexibility, more time, before you make a decision. So high school seniors, go ahead and follow the Accept group on Twitter. Accept group is a nonprofit organization that advocates for access and equity for college admissions. It's a group that I volunteer for as well. Like, and they're very, very, very robust group of admissions professionals. And they've actually put together a link of colleges that have moved those deadlines already for students. I will post this as a follow-up to our recording so that you guys can check on Google Docs, like which colleges are on that list, so you can go forward with that. And then some colleges, again, join test optional movement temporarily for fall 2021 or longer or indefinitely. So you may have heard some colleges have done this as a pilot. So pilot pretty much means they've been thinking about this anyway. So let's just give it a shot with these current juniors and possibly go through the following 2-3 years. So Boston University said so. University of California only said for juniors, for instance. So every college has a different rule on this. Please, please, please read those notices directly from colleges with their announcements, what they say about test optional. Fair Test provides most up-to-date list, and I personally post many test optional news on my Twitter on IC Firat. So please follow me so you can see the most up-to-date news. I'm a huge advocate of SAT and ACT optional or blind, even though more than half of our operations at Firat Education is test prep. And you might wonder, why do I do that? Well, I do that because I can see in the last 15 years, more and more students, I mean, every student of ours have gone into where they want to get into, no matter who they are, where they are on the spectrum in terms of academic strength or where they want to end up in college. That just means that the standardized testing works if you prep for it. And if you prep for it, then what's the point of going through this stress for students? That's why I advocate for test optional and test blind. So you can see some of my very sharp views on test optional on my Twitter page and on my blog as well. And if your family financial situation may have changed as a senior because of COVID-19, maybe family job loss, income loss, since you've filed the FAFSA and CSS profile, you have an option. You can call or email or both the financial aid office of your favorite college today. After this call them and say what happened and tell them exactly your situation. Maybe your EFC, expected family contribution, showed $40,000 a year before all of this, but now you do the math and it's zero. Guess what? There is a potential that depending on the college you're applying to, there might be some endowment dollars left to allocate for you, and you might still end up being able to go to that college of your dreams without having to break the bank. So call them and get that information. So at Firat Education, because of all of this, we recommend our students to stay on track. So no matter what age they're in remote learning, virtual learning, no matter what grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, they need to stay sharp. So for the subjects that they're good at, we recommend them connecting with either a group of students, group of friends they have to set up a study group, or work with a tutor like ourselves and enrich, improve, get ahead in the subjects that they really are good at doing. And on the flip side, for the subjects that they're not good at doing, maybe we can fill the gaps. For sophomores, it's not test prep time, but it is the time for them to identify SAT or ACT. So take 2 full-length practice tests. We offer this on a regular basis, and now we do it remotely, remote proctoring. So like do it online on Khan Academy or on act.org, or contact us and we'll provide you with practice testing so that you can identify which test is better for you in light of your college admissions goals and college list. Juniors, you may have taken already 1 or 2 official tests on the SAT or ACT. Unless you're sure your list of colleges are clear and you're good with the test optional, then you should continue your SAT, ACT preparation like normal, as if the test is going to happen next week. Take practice tests and connect with your tutor or your prep program virtually and get your work sharpened. Because again, when the time comes, when the tests open up again, you're not going to have missed a beat. And on the flip side, if you feel like you're done, you're ready with the 1 or 2 SAT, ACTs you've already taken, great. So then you can drop it and move on with college admissions. And on the college admission side, what can you do? You can visit virtually, register for info sessions, and research about the colleges and narrow down that list. And start your resume process and even journaling your activities and your, I guess, daily life during COVID-19 home lockdown. So they may become your college admissions essay. And seniors, look at your commitment date. If it's May 1, you've got to move fast. You've got 3 weeks left and you've got to make a decision. You've got to choose one college for which you send a deposit to, and then you're done. Get excited about it. Get excited about this. It's unprecedented times, but you'll have a story to tell your extended family when the time comes. But really do your research. So what I'll do is I'll unshare my screen and look through the Q&A to make sure that I answer all your questions. Looks like we've made good time. Wow, more and more people joined in while I was sharing my screen, so thank you for your interest. So there's a couple of questions I will get to, and if you have any questions at this time, please hit Q&A on the Zoom and send your questions. I will continue until 2:30 p.m. Central, so 9 more minutes. And then if you have any specific questions, then you might want to follow up via email if you don't want to share it here. Okay, so the first question is, what is the cutoff SAT score where it is more beneficial to apply as a test optional than to submit the actual last score? This is for an engineering student. So if your list of colleges include a certain range, so let's say that it's the admitted class for your favorite school is 1300 to 1400, and you already have a 1350. I would say it's a safe, middle of the road SAT score you already have, and you can decide to either submit that score. In this case, I would actually submit it because it's in the middle of that range, and then you don't have to retake. Now, if the range is 1300 to 1400 and you have a 1240, then I would probably don't submit it, because the test optional schools, when they go test optional, tend to receive higher SAT, ACT scores than their published averages. And that's, again, because the students think, oh, wow, my scores are so much higher than the average from last year. So if I submit my 32 when the average was a 28, I'm most likely going to get in. So when that's the mindset, then your 1240, when the average was 1300, 1400, is really not going to cut it. So you will do a disservice to your child if you submit that 1240 when the range is right there. There's another question. Are you only saying to limit the AP classes in 11th grade to your specialty because it may take away from the student's ability to get higher grades in the most important classes? So that's part one. So part one is yes, that is correct. If you're distracting yourself with the requirements of APs on other subjects that you really don't have to go for, then yes, you may be hurting those core subjects that you should be going for. However, there are students, like the example that I gave you. In my student's case, well, the AP US history was really not that much of a detriment for the student because that was something he loved doing and he really thrived. So he didn't spend like super extra hours. He probably would have spent the same amount of hours with AP US history versus regular US history, maybe slightly more on the AP. So it didn't hurt him that much. So in that case, we said, that's fine. You can go for the AP in that case. So in your second question, you're saying, but if they can handle it all, does it look better that they've maxed out all classes, or does it make it look like the student is confused about their path? Oh, not at all. Not at all confused. So they understand that depending on the school from which the student comes, maybe the APs are the one way to show to colleges that they're really super competitive, and maybe they're high-end students. That's why they have to load up on the APs. So they're not going to think that you're confused at all. So just by looking at other perspectives of your application, so whether this is your resume, this is your teacher recommendations, or relevant activities inside of school, outside of school, then they'll be able to say, oh, okay, this student is engineering or medical path. So it makes sense that they're going for all APs because they want to keep their GPA high. Excellent. So I got those two good questions. Thanks for sharing. So we got 5 more minutes. I will go ahead and answer those as well if you have any more. So just so you guys are aware that this is not the only webinar we're doing. We're actually localizing the content moving forward. So what's going to happen is tomorrow we have another webinar, but this time we're doing a panel webinar with my consultants from fraud education from Arizona as well as California. We're going to talk about how college admissions and standardized testing been impacted for colleges and schools in Arizona and California. So if you're interested in going to schools in Arizona or California, then you might want to watch that one because that's going to be tailored or localized for that market. And then on Thursday, I'll be joined by two of my other colleagues, two from the Dallas area, and myself, on a panel format, and we're going to discuss Texas admissions in general. So whether this is public university systems or private universities in Texas, and how are they adjusting to COVID-19 in college admissions and standardized testing. And then Friday, I will be talking about college admissions and standardized testing in the Northeast area for most of the competitive schools around the country, some of the IVs. I'll be joined with my colleague, Kevin March from Boston area, and we'll be talking about specifically for that market. So if you have colleges on your list that are located in those markets, please go ahead and register for those webinars on Zoom. They're free, and we'll include that follow-up along with this recording today. So we'll go from there. I don't see any other questions coming through. Let me see here. I want to make sure I don't miss any. Okay. Okay, looks like I've answered all the live questions. So this is also on Facebook Live on our Facebook page. So if you're not following us on Facebook, please follow. And there are some comments being made on that as well. So in total, I think we exceeded over 300 viewers at the same time. So I was really happy to know that you got to share this valuable information with your families and friends. So this is information changing every single day. Please connect with us this week for specific markets, as well as next week's announcements for new webinars. So thank you for joining us today, and I wish you the best. Stay healthy and stay in contact if you are friends of the fraud education, and if you are not, we'd love to work with you if you need any help in any of this process that is personalized to you and your needs. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.